Planning Commission study session. I have a land acknowledgement somewhere. Okay. It is. The land on which we gather is the territory of the Ottawa and Chippewa peoples who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. Thank you for your strength and resilience in protecting this land and inspiring us to uphold our responsibilities to do the same. Are you ready for roll call, Katie? Yes. Just as Jerry walks in, perfectly timed.
Commissioner McGillivray?
Here.
Commissioner O'Brien?
Present.
Commissioner Treadwell?
Here.
Commissioner Swanson?
Here.
Commissioner Cameron?
Present.
Commissioner Anderson?
Present.
Commissioner Dutry?
Here.
And Commissioner Hershey is absent. She's let us know she's not going to be here.
Okay, so topics for consideration. We have many of them tonight. The first one is the determination of master plan consistency in terms of location, character, and extent of the proposed pavilion to support the farmers market.
Yeah, so with us tonight, we have Harry Burkholder from the DDA, as well as Krista Good of Beckett Rader, the firm that has been consulted to work on the design for the long-anticipated shed at the farmers market. I believe this project began in concept around 2018, I think, with the DDA. This farmers market has been operating here in the city since 1984, primarily in Lot B downtown, which is deeded parkland or dedicated parkland. And so if I understand it correctly, and Harry can correct me on the record, that this was one of the priorities identified by the DDA board to move forward with implementation. So pursuant with the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, any new public building or structure or street that is going to be implemented or constructed has to go before the Planning Commission and be evaluated to determine whether it is consistent with the master plan in terms of location, character, and extent. So the DDA and Beckett Rader have been working with city staff, figuring out the requirements, incorporating that into the design. The technical review has already occurred with staff. They have presented at the design team and incorporated that feedback into it. So at this point is before the commission, and I will turn it over to Harry and Chris, who I believe have a brief presentation to walk you through that design.
Thank you.
Good evening. Harry Burkholder with the DDA. It's a pleasure to be in front of you. Sean really took the introduction away, but he pretty much covered it. This is a project that we've been working on since 2018. It's one of the priorities of the DDA board as it relates to TIF 97. And in many ways, this project has come full circle. If you remember the old blue canopies that used to be in this site, that was one of the first investments of the DDA for the farmers market. So to come full circle with a permanent pavilion is something that I know that has been a desire of the DDA and farmers market for quite some time. I'm going to introduce Krista Good from Beckett Rader, who's going to talk about some of the details of the pavilion itself. But I wanted just to give a little bit of background on why we decided to do this now. And one of the biggest reasons is the city is planning to do the redevelopment of Lot B, where this pavilion would sit. And that's something that's been in the city CIP plan for quite some time. And as we were kind of moving this project forward, it seemed like it was great timing to actually do essentially two projects together. We've said this all along: if the farmers market pavilion is not approved ultimately by the city commission, it's my understanding that Lot B will continue to move forward regardless. So the projects are tied in concept, and then hopefully in reality, but Lot B is still moving forward regardless of the pavilion. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris, and he can walk us kind of through the arc of this project and any details on the pavilion.
Thanks, Harry. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As everyone said, my name is Krista Good, civil engineer with Beckett Rader. We're civil engineering landscape architecture firm, and we're partnered on this project with Edge Design Associates. Our architect is Dan Mooney on this work. So just a brief presentation here to show you how we got to where we're at. Sean, that history actually goes back to 2016 when Beckett Rader was hired by the DDA to do some preliminary planning on the farmers market. We also have a national consultant who is also supporting the project in terms of the farmers market design, farmers market usage as well. So, with no further ado, we're going to start with a review of the 2025 farmers market. So we can all just kind of visit how the farmers market was populated by vendors this past year. We did consult with the operations team for the farmers market, as well as appear before the farmers market board during the design of this project. We're going to visit the 2017 concept plan that Beckett and Rader put together, and then move on to the 2023 parking lot plan prepared by city engineering. And finally, we'll look at the unified market plan, where we brought together the 2023 parking lot plan with the farmers market design. So the current farmers market layout, it consists of two double-loaded aisles of vendors, basically filling in the market as it exists today. Just to go back to that, you can see right here, we've got the front-to-front bays of parking in the middle, and then there's one row of parking on the north edge, one row of parking on the south edge, and that exactly is how the farmers market is currently parceled up into different vendor lots. So on this figure, you can see that there's a vehicle associated with every one of the booths. And so they have approximately 74 stalls, 66 with vehicles, and 8 without vehicles. This is the 2016 market concept plan, which basically reutilized the existing parking lot as it stands today, and it provided for 141 parking spaces. And that 2016 farmers market concept plan provided for 56 pavilion spaces, 56 spaces for vendors underneath the pavilion, and then 39 paved spaces along the south edge of the parking lot, and then 24 grass spaces for a total of 119 total vendor spaces. So it was a significant increase from what the farmers market currently offers today, was anticipated by that 2016 conceptual planning. This is the 2016 conceptual market structure. It basically consists of columns supporting a roof. There's no expectation of any temporary or permanent walls. It's a completely open structure, and it would provide for vending of the farmers market on farmers market days and parking underneath. And you can see how we've got that double loaded on either side, and then there's another double loaded aisle. So you've got the vendors backing up to a 10-foot pedestrian space for all of the customers, and that occurs both underneath the pavilion and adjacent to the sidewalk along the south edge of the parking lot. So then moving on to our 2023 parking lot plan that was prepared by city engineering. What they discovered in the process of revising and preparing to renovate this parking lot was that that entire row of parking on the north edge of the parking lot was in fact in the MDOT right-of-way of Grandview Parkway. And you can see that we've highlighted that pink line is the actual property line of what's owned by the city. So at that time, and this is really important because the farmers market's not making the parking lot smaller. The lack of ownership of the land where the parking lot is currently located is what's making it smaller. We can't continue to have a city parking lot located in the MDOT right-of-way. So it was reduced to 100 parking spaces, and the city engineering was gracious enough to let the DDA consider some revisions that would make it, in our mind, more suitable for the farmers market. What you can note here is, I'm going to shine it actually maybe behind. It's not going to shine up there. Well, there's a line, and it's labeled 8-inch water, right along the south edge of the that middle parking area. And if we were to fully utilize the 2023 parking lot plan, we would have been looking to locate our farmers pavilion right over top of that water main. And we didn't think that was a good idea. Engineering didn't think that was a good idea. And on top of that, we'd be looking at having vendor spaces on the north side of the parking lot, as well as vendor spaces on the south side of the parking lot, kind of splitting up what had been a very efficient vendor-vendor and pedestrian aisle in between. So how we came to a unified plan was to actually slide that pavilion and that center parking to the north and move what had been north parking to the south. And as a result, we end up with 101 parking spaces, and we end up with 113 total vendor booths, of which I believe it's 60 are underneath the pavilion, and then we have various other vending spaces in tents along that south side. And keep in mind, the current market only has 74 vendor stalls. So, and they only fill that out when they're at a peak, generally in September, and late August, September, and early October. Then the market's full out on Saturdays. They're more than happy to provide additional spaces, but the fact of the matter is that on Wednesdays, under current market, the number of vendors that want to be there, most of the vendors would probably end up underneath the pavilion. And for the better part of the season, the same would happen on Saturdays as well. But for those peak times, we offer, with this plan, a more significant number of vending spaces that are available, albeit not all of them are going to be able to pull their farm vehicle or however they're getting their goods to market right up to their vendor space. But it's important to note that for anybody who's concerned, we had extensive conversations with the farmers market staff, and they indicated that they have a very finely tuned and orchestrated process of loading the farmers market, with the largest vehicles have to arrive first, and then everyone else trickles in based on a schedule thereafter. And I didn't even know this because I visit the farmers market, get my goods and leave right in the middle somewhere. But they also are required to stay. So you sell out all the corn you brought, you're stuck there until it's time to clear out the market, Saturday afternoon. So, concerns about how crowded it might be can be abated by the fact that there's this orchestrated loading and unloading process. So with that then, I have a couple of renderings for you to look at. I know they were already in your packet. As I said, the structure, or I haven't said yet, but the structure has columns. It's a clear underneath. There are no walls. It's a combination of steel and wood. And then we have a proposed shingled metal roof. So we did look at a standing seam metal roof, but we've proposed, and the budget will allow for, a shingled metal roof, which we think has a very nice appearance. It'll have a series of several colors, so that the color will be broken up. It will be one very large structure. It's 310 feet long. So you'll drive by, and it's like the length of a football field in our parking lot there. But moving on then, as I said, wood and steel. So you can see some of the cross members there that you provide the structural strength to hold that roof up. Are steel columns, but we have the nice mixture of wood and steel in the form of the roof decking itself that supports the metal roof. The roof decking from underneath is wood, as well as the structural members for the timbers. And then this is a view along the length. You can see that there is a skylight that is along the center. That's going to be a plexiglass, and it's a selection that is designed to not fog over like some plexiglass is known to do, but it'll be transparent and provide interior lighting underneath this roof during the day. And then there is also lighting, which in this figure is a little bit accented. If you were, we did provide for, and this is a concept of if there was to be some kind of event that would occur, you would want to provide some additional lighting for that event. But at the core of it, you can see the glow against the underside of the roof there. There will be uplights inside of the roof members that point up and then wash the area below with the minimum amount of lighting that you would need to safely and suitably light the parking lot. So that really is the extent of the dog and pony show that I have to present to you guys tonight. Beyond that, I've just included a couple of, you have a more substantial plan set in your packet, but I have included here a number of slides. If there are any particular elements of the plan that you wanted to discuss, we can pull up the stormwater management plan, the site layout plan, or any other aspect that you might have questions about.
Thank you so much. Board? Sure, go ahead, Jackie.
I'm sure this has been addressed before, but within Mr. Winter's executive summary for this, he mentioned that the property known as Lot B is designated parkland owned by the city. And it caused me to wonder, well, what are appropriate uses for designated parkland? And for the state of Michigan, it appears that it involves utilization of land for public recreation, open space, or conservation purposes, often preserved in an undeveloped or natural state. Obviously, we're not at that point, but I just wanted to be assured that we are on legally solid ground in terms of the use of this designated parkland with a permanent structure. The description that I found within the state of Michigan for criteria is that, let me see, the land is typically protected from development such as the construction of a permanent non-recreational structure. And I don't know, has food shopping become a recreational activity? So has that loop been closed previously in the process?
Yeah, it has. I had a conversation. Like I said, this has been a long-standing project for over 10 years now. And I had a conversation with the city attorney a few years ago. And yeah, these type of accessory uses in parks are of not a concern. Just across the street, we have a food concession operated by a third party in a permanent structure at the open space. We have other structures built by and occupied by other clubs that aren't the city, such as tax rowing, or sailing. Then you got the rowing club and things like that. So.
Just for benefit of the people on the commission, could that written opinion be shared with the members of the commission?
Yeah, if that's requested by the commission, I think that would be something that's fine.
Go ahead, Brian. Just for my purposes, I don't need that. It's listed as, when I look at the uses allowed for open space, I'm satisfied. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, right now it serves as a parking lot.
Yeah.
And that issue was previously debated in the city decades ago. And you can go back to that also. But, you know, parking is an acceptable use for recreational property because it's a parking area that technically services the parks across the street. Mm-hmm. So that's not my opinion. That was a legal opinion that was made not even in this century, the previous century. So that property's got a long history. I do have a couple quick questions though. So going back to your earlier slide, because we're not really seeing it. We've seen it in the technical drawings, I suppose. But what exactly is happening what exactly is being done along the south side? I have two questions. Of the parking lot, in that lot, and two, are we looking at this as one integrated plan, meaning the parking lot and or are these two separate plans on top of each other? Those are my two questions.
The lot and the structure?
Right, the lot and the structure, and then, right.
It is one singular set of construction documents for reconstruction of the parking lot and new construction of a farmer's market shed.
So then, would that be like a single bid package then,
That is the
typically?
intent, yes.
Okay.
That's the intent, but I think we have talked about the opportunity, though, if the farmer's market was not moved forward, that you could still do the parking lot as a standalone.
That's fine, but that's not what's in front of us
Correct.
today. So that's, that's a city commission decision.
And then the south part,
Sure, what's specifically about the south part?
If you want, so it appears from these, so that there's these brown things on the south park. What are those?
Sure, so in fact, this is what you're looking at from a rendered standpoint of the scope of work associated with the reconstruction of the parking lot, and then the orange, rectangle in the middle, of course, is the farmer's market shed. We are constructing a 10-foot sidewalk along the south edge of the parking lot, which, in fact, there's some variation in the width of the current sidewalk. This will have a continuous width. We're offsetting it from the existing trees right now so that we won't be impacting any of the large trees that exist there today. And then we have a trapezoidal landing area that's associated with the connection to the existing bridge. There is also another DDA project. I don't know if you want to speak to that, Harry?
Just that it's a project that the DDA has been working on, is this kind of first phase of the Riverwalk, which could potentially connect to the site. So both of those designs have been designed in such a way where they would actually link seamlessly. So the connectivity from this parking lot would then connect to the new bridge that's been talked about. That project has not been finalized by any means, but the intent is that ultimately those two projects would connect together.
So then,
But you're also talking about continuing to allow farmers markets along the south edge the way it is currently,
Yeah, I think
With
those are.
tents.
that one there,
Yeah.
yes.
which is not really what's there right now, but it would be, that's included or not included? Are those structures involved in that?
No, those are tents.
Those are tents.
Those are just the tents, okay.
It really harkens back to.
They should be white or blue tents, not brown, looks like a roof tents.
I'll speak to my folks that do the coloring. It really harkens back to when, years ago, we had the, frankly, much narrower sidewalk. And there was the blue roof that was torn down some 10 years ago because it got aged. But, this really kind of replicates what that was with a wider sidewalk. I say wider because I remember if I ran into a friend who was pushing a stroller like I was back in those days, we pretty much corked up the whole market for as long as we talked. And this.
Yes, you did.
so in this image, the walking path then would be on the south side of the tents. They would actually be going in between, on the sidewalk, in between. The cars would then be parked on the other side. And then in theory, you'd steer traffic to go up and around into the structure. Like that would be walking paths?
In either end, or actually, it doesn't want to work on here. East and west. And then also connecting to
Yeah.
on the north side, and then also maintaining this connection to lot 2. And then we have the sidewalk going north-south here. Really, this is shut off.
Yeah.
I suspect it corridor, right along with alignment of the bridge, and
Thank you.
I don't know if you guys were able. I can come over and do it again.
Mitch?
Yeah, so I noticed that these renderings sever a connection that currently exists, two connections really, between Lot B and Lot T immediately to the west. is that something that had been independently decided? And is there still a possibility, say, a mountable curb that would allow an ambulance or other vehicle to still move between this area and the Lot T?
You're asking about not pedestrian access with Lot
Yes.
T, but vehicular access?
Yes.
Okay. We did speak with the the fire marshal, actually, at the PI meeting back in early November. And what was understood at the time was that the density of the farmer's market with both pedestrians and vehicles, even in its current state, would require that an emergency responder would park on the perimeter of the farmer's market, and then they would, on foot, that's how they would get to typically, that's how they would get to respond to an emergency. And so that would be maintained by this. It simply would be too dense for them to actually penetrate it with a vehicle, and they believe that that's the case generally now.
I'm also imagining some scenario where now you're cutting it down to one access only off of Cass Street, whereas previously it had access to the parking lot to the west, and had a connection to Grandview Parkway. And if something happens, like a truck breaks down and ends up blocking, then it does create more of an issue.
Perhaps, yeah, I think there's legitimacy to your point. The direction we were given was that, and as we indicated on that 2023 engineering plan, that the directive was that the T and B parking lots were being separated.
Which I frankly think is long overdue. It's a really chaotic. If anybody goes to the farmer's market on a Saturday morning at 10:30 or 11 o'clock in September, right when we were talking about that peak time, it is utter chaos with a vehicle. There's people waiting in the lot, in Lot T, circling, waiting for somebody to pull out, people just darting in and out. I think it's long overdue, and I think it'll be great. The renderings make sense. It looks beautiful. I can picture it. It is a much better version than what we have now. Just to bring us all back, I think the focus should be on whether this meets location, character, and extent, and that those are consistent with the master plan, just so that we're not like too all over the place. Shay?
I'm going to make the motion to affirm the proposed pavilion in Lot B to support the farmer's market as presented at the January 21st, 2026 Planning Commission meeting, be found to be consistent with the city's master plan in terms of location, character, and extent.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. We're going to go to public comment on this agenda item. Okay, seeing no public comment, I'm going to close public comment on this agenda item and bring it back to the board for last minute discussion before a vote. Brian?
Just if you look at the 6 items that are included in the packet that you can compare it to, I mean, it pretty much hits it on 5 of the 6, and the 6 is housing, and I don't think private housing in a public park is considered a park use, so it doesn't really apply. So that's why I'm supporting it. I mean, it's not a huge improvement in green space, but there technically is more green space, and there is now a top-of-the-line water filtration system. It certainly improves pedestrian transportation. I think it improves safety. It moves the sidewalk a little bit further away from Grandview Parkway. It's certainly an economic driver for the downtown, which is part of the master plan for the downtown. So I don't see where it doesn't. I find it one of the easier yes votes.
I agree. Mitch?
Yes, one question I have is, how will this work for the first week of July?
That's a great question. The timing of the completion of this is something we don't know yet because we haven't gone out to bid. Ideally, this would be a spring project, and we would have to have the farmer's market temporarily at Rotary Square before work is done there. And then once this is complete, we would make the shift. But I can't speak to the exact timing of that yet, just because we're
Is
not.
Arnold going to be operating elsewhere?
That's really up to the Cherry Festival. They're aware of this project moving forward, and they're looking at all kinds of options, but I can't speak to their plans for Arnold's.
And I would add that I don't think this is coming out of left field, because the parking lot reconstruction component has been talked about for a few years with them. So they're aware that changes and disruptions would be coming. One minor detail I want to point out that I'm excited about is when MDOT did the reconstruction 2 years ago of this section, they weren't actually able to put in a sidewalk because we were encroaching our parking lot into where the sidewalk would go. So this project would complete that pedestrian connectivity along this stretch that just simply due to our past design, we weren't able to have implemented, so.
And it looks like it's set back nicely.
Mhm.
Okay. Great. So moving forward with the vote, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Great. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank
for
you.
your time.
Okay. I forget that it's still me that has to move on to the next agenda item. So we're now on B, which is the determination of master plan consistency, pretty much a very similar item, except for Monroe Street reconstruction. Sean, do you want to take it away?
Yep, so this is the second one today. You probably realize if you've served for a few years, there's an annual rhythm where these projects typically come in this time of year because they're getting ready to go out to bid for the spring construction season. So every year, engineering has a series of projects. Their pavement improvement plan, which is their mill and fill projects and things like that, their asset management. And then depending on the scope, they usually end up funding one street reconstruction a year. So this coming year, it's going to be the reconstruction of Monroe Street for the full extent of the existing street from Bay to West Front, complete reconstruction. So with that, I'll turn it over to Zach Cole from our engineering team. He's been the lead on this design and working with the residents. This too has gone through technical review with the city's design team. So you may have heard in the last agenda item reference to the PI meeting. So that's what it used to be called at the city, Planning, Inspections, and Engineering. It has evolved and is now the design team after falling off for a few years. And this has already gone to the City Commission for review as well. So now it's coming back to the Planning Commission for the location, character, and extent with the master plan consistency.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Zach Cole. I'm with the City Engineering Department. I'm the designer on the project, working with obviously other staff we have in the office. And I am here to present our 2026 paving and resurfacing project. If you don't mind, I'm going to go away from Monroe and move to the other two, if that's all right, Sean? Because they're a little smaller, shorter, just so that we can cover those. All right, the first part of this project was Ramsdale. We have some storm sewer that actually has a couple of elbows in it. This is a utility project put forward through the Sewer Water Maintenance Department with ART. We're looking at, there's like a series of 4 or 5 elbows that deflect in elevation to clear the sewer line, which you see, that traverses, what is that, northeast to southwest. And we're looking at putting in a new structure, putting in new pipe. So just to kind of give you guys a heads up, that's what this project's about. It's purely maintenance and I call it like upgrading the existing infrastructure because it's clearing trees and branches that we get in the pipe from Inkachi Pond. You have any questions?
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're not really approving these, are we? Because they're maintenance.
This one's maintenance. I'm just going to go through the whole package so you can see what's actually being presented from beginning to end.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then if
The
you do
question
have.
for us is only.
Only Monroe.
Monroe.
Correct, the only one is Monroe, but the whole package is, well, we'll call it the whole package. So I'm just going to kind of breeze through it real fast.
Thank you.
And just for clarification, this is the complete package that they presented to the City Commission. But
Yeah.
you are correct, it is Monroe that the Planning
Yeah.
Commission is
And
looking
so these are different, I'll call them bid sections within the project. So Cass Street Crosswalk was also put forward as maintenance last year through the DDA. It was kicked back to engineering and the DDA. Their request was that we shorten the. Everybody all right?
Yeah.
Okay. We shortened the drive throats and crossing width for this crosswalk. So a part of that is working with the DDA, upgrading both approaches, which are highly deteriorated within the alley, and then the sidewalks as well. So any questions on this project? And then lastly, we have Monroe Street for 2026 paving and resurfacing. This project is probably the largest project I've done here at the city as far as length, cost, scope, utility upgrades, just complete infrastructure. This is by far the largest project I've ever done. Again, it's from front to bay. We're looking at all crossings being reduced width. So there are 20, I think there are 22 or 20-foot crossings, 20-foot crossings at the intersections, and that is all 4 quadrants of every intersection. This is not like Monroe Street, where it was just the through streets that were addressed. A lot of the history behind not doing through streets were we still have to do those streets too. And so when you come up and you do those streets, you have to get into the intersections in order to do the sewer, the water, the storm anyways. So in this one, we're taking it back even further and doing even more. So you have what you can see in the photo is almost 80 feet of work within each direction of the intersection. So if you look at Jefferson, for instance, or Wayne or Randolph, there's quite the cutback, and incorporated with all that is sanitary, sewer, water, all the upgrades necessary to get the work out of what we're doing so that when we do take off and do the next street, whether that's, Wayne, Randolph, or Hill, or was it Ramsdale, sorry, Willow, that we can just take off from where we leave and we don't have to get back into those bump outs for utility upgrades. The street allows for parking on both sides. The desire from the residents were that they wanted to maintain parking and the similar character of the street, so we maintained parking on both sides as opposed to Madison, which was parking on one side. This does reduce traffic flows, so incorporating the parking on both sides as well as reduced throat widths as well as the typical cross sections approved through the street design manual. So everything is basically laid out for us to design a project. This is exactly what we get out of the approved designs. The other thing that was requested was to reduce the speeds coming into Monroe from Bay Street, and so you'll see a realignment. This is the exact realignment copied, pasted from our old design in Elmwood and put in Monroe. So this is exactly what you see. Elmwood mimics what Monroe is today on this design. We are also incorporating bioswales, dry wells, leaching basins. Forgive me, I'm coming off the cuff here, but I'm running on very little sleep too. So, new trees. We are removing some trees in this project, which you will see in red or orange color there on the screen. A lot of that was dealt with through the Parks Department. And then, just like we did on Madison, when Monroe is done, the Parks Department will come through and plant new trees. So instead of incorporating it into the project, they have a vendor that they use for purchasing trees, and they will plant them right behind the project, probably in the spring. The anticipated construction schedule for this is in the entire summer. That doesn't mean that it can't be done sooner or shorter in a timeline, but we expect that it's going to take all year. Madison Street took all year. We expect this will take all year. If we see a lower construction season than this last year, which we don't have the MDOT projects anymore, it's nice to free up some crews, so maybe we can get this done a little quicker than other streets. You guys have any questions?
Oh, Shay's just stretching.
Sorry.
Jackie?
Sorry.
I know in between these two parallel street projects, the Complete Streets policy was adopted. And it sounds to me as though there are a lot of aspects of this design that fulfill on that policy. Are there any places where you feel we just weren't able to, or it wasn't practical, or are you pretty satisfied with this design bringing to life the Complete Streets policy?
I would say yes. I'm pretty satisfied with it. The bike design, or Sean, can you help me with the action mobility plan? I'm
Mobility
sorry.
action plan.
Sorry, the mobility action plan actually does not recognize this street for any action. So we've been looking at all the plans available through the city, through the Planning Commission, City Commission, everything that is laid out for us to use. This last year, we put in our RFBs at Cass and Union and 11th. Those are recognized in the Action Mobility Plan, or Mobility Action Plan, however you word that. But we do look at these plans to make sure we're hitting all the highlights and everything, all the requests from the various boards, the people, the public, because the plans aren't there just to look pretty on a shelf. We institute them. We want to make sure that they happen.
Yeah, so to support what Zach's saying, engineering doesn't design these streets in a vacuum by themselves. We have a lot of collaborative meetings where we bring the plans, the different departments bring the different aspects. We put all the information on the table to begin designing it. Zach is correct that Monroe Street is not identified in the planned vision bike network for a street that needs a facility.
Yeah.
However, by taking the design recommendations or prescriptions in the street design manual, we were able to incorporate that and still, with all the bump outs on all four quadrants, work to help slow the speeds throughout the entire corridor, which makes it, in the absence of a separated bike facility, makes it more bike-friendly within the neighborhood. And there will be sidewalk through the whole entire corridor, including the gaps that exist today, which I believe is between Hill and Wayne, is
Yes,
where there
correct.
isn't one now, but that will be filled in. So the whole thing will have pedestrian access on both sides. So I know as we went through the multiple iterations, I think every box that could be checked was checked through that process. So.
Great, thank you very much. Will there be the speed humps to traffic calming, slowing in the street, as well as we've been appreciating on the prior project?
No, so this one does not incorporate the speed humps. The speed humps were instituted because we dropped that west lane of parking on Madison. And so the parking serves as a deterrent for speeds. It's in, I don't know, about every document, NACTO, the FHWA, even our MMUTCD recognizes that parking is the #1 deterrent for slowing speeds. And so door swings, accessibility, having on-street parking is really the #1 deterrent. We have it on both sides. That said, if we'll say a few years down the road, we still see speeds that are exceeding what should be exceeding speeds, we need to look at enforcement, and at a last resort, we could always install one, but it's not our first line of defense. It would be something that we would try to institute after the fact.
Thank you.
Makes
welcome.
sense. Mitch?
Yes, I am glad to see that the last gap of sidewalks is being included in this design north of Wayne Street. But I can understand that when you're putting in a sidewalk, then you do need to remove some trees. But I am a little curious, since there have been other gaps of sidewalk that have been put in recent years, and to what extent have those projects been done in the vision of the reconstruction of this street? Because I'm looking on just north of Jefferson on the east side of Monroe, there's a tree slated for removal that had a sidewalk put in 4 years ago. That it might have been good to preserve a tree at that point, but if the road was going to be rebuilt in a way that could have necessitated that tree's removal, why not get ahead of it and put in a new tree that would work?
So that's the best part about this design, is I didn't tell the Parks Department which trees to remove.
Okay.
They told me which trees they wanted removed. So this is purely the Parks Department's plan for removing trees, dead, dying, diseased, whatever they deem necessary. I put it in our plan because that's where it's the cheapest for them. I know that manpower is kind of I'll call it a sore subject sometimes internally, But when we can accomplish this kind of a job and taking out, I can't remember how many trees, but we'll say 12 trees or something. You know, if we can take out that number of trees for them, remove stumps while we're doing utility work, or even pre-work, because most of these have to be done before March 1st. That's really the goal.
Yeah.
The oak wilt and other bugs and critters in the area, just, yeah, we have to get some of this work done before. But it's not project dependent, if that's what your
Okay,
question
yeah.
was.
And the city arborist is in the Parks Department that does have the most expertise on a tree-by-tree basis.
Right.
Plus,
I've utilized them a lot of times, and it's very, very thankful to have.
even if you see a tree as healthy now, that doesn't mean that it can't get struck by lightning or have disease or get hit by a tall truck at some point in the future, and thus need to be removed.
Okay. Well, seeing as we've finished most of our discussion, does anybody have a motion in regards to whether or not this meets the terms for location, character, and extent?
I'll make the motion to affirm the planned design for the reconstruction of Monroe Street as presented at the January 21st, 2026 Planning Commission meeting is found to be consistent with the city's master plan in terms of location, character, and extent.
Support.
Great, thank you very much. We have a motion. I'll now move over to public comment. Just as a reminder, please state your name, address, city resident or not city resident, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Bill Manny, 905 Bay Street, city resident. Probably just my one concern is, you know, we're seeing increased traffic on Bay Street now that everything's fully functional, the roundabout, all that stuff is great. I think there's a need for a three-way stop at Monroe with that project possibly, and even better yet, maybe a three-way stop at Elmwood, and that will definitely control the excessive traffic, and it will definitely control the speed of the traffic that is coming down there, because already we're seeing increased speeds and increased traffic along Bay Street. And two possible buffers are three-way stops both at Monroe and Elmwood. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this item? Okay. Closing public comment. Back to the board for discussion and/or the vote. Yeah, Mitch.
To the point of the intersection with Bay Street, I see this design as something that will significantly ameliorate the situation by narrowing the neck down, by causing a slight curve that, yes, makes it a squared-up intersection, but also means that you don't have a clear lane visually, both coming down Monroe or turning off of Bay Street. There could be an additional tree or two put there, but ultimately that is up to, as we just heard, Parks to decide where trees are best placed.
Heard. Okay. Seeing nobody jumping to make another comment, so I think we'll vote on the motion. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Sorry you are sleep deprived, but thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Moving right along, we are moving on to C, which is the annual presentation on the annual report.
Yep, so each year, Planning Commission is required by the Michigan Planning Enabling Act to submit an annual report to the City Commission, kind of recapping the activities of the year and things like that. So tonight we'll be going over the draft report. No action is needed today. We plan to bring this back for future adoption, at which point then we'll send it on to the City Commission. Up until about 2 years ago, there used to be a practice too where annually each department would provide a review or report to the City Commission, about a 5 to 10 minute. So as a practice, this annual report has become a combination of the planning department and planning commission, since the work we do is in tandem. So we've just kind of held that line throughout it. So I want to thank the department staff for pulling together all the data for this, and especially Katie Miller here, who did all the layout for us.
Makes it so pretty.
So pretty. So moving on, it just begins with an overview. A lot of this is just language and how planning and zoning works, and this was incorporated from last year with slight modifications. So I'll skip over that since you have it. But some year-end totals, one thing that really struck out to us after a number of years of permitting number of dwelling units in the 300 to 400 range, last year we only saw 70 dwelling units get permitted in the city.
Wild.
So that's lower than we've been in like 10 years. This may be a signal that the construction market is still very, very challenging in terms of labor costs and availability, as well as land costs and material costs and things of that nature. Now, I want to point out that this is the number of dwelling units permitted each year. So some of those never materialized, all right? Like Novo Hall Street, which was about 90 units, I think, in 2021, that hasn't materialized. Going back to, I believe, 2020, for those of you who were here before me, 124 West Front Street was approved as a residential building. They went back and then changed their plans and got approved for a hotel. So some of those were never actually built. But for terms of data consistency, we always present the number that were permitted each year. So quite a big decrease there. We did have quite a few other license approvals and things. So when you see the vacation home rentals, STRs, that license approval of 540, I want to point out that includes all the renewals too. So that's not 540 new ones. Land use permits.
Sorry, I did change. It didn't update. You
It
did.
didn't update,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll put that in there.
Okay.
You did tell me to.
Because
do
we
that.
asked to, change it. We're going to change that in the draft, so it says approval/renewal, so it's a little more clear. The land use permits, which included those 70 dwelling units, we had a total of 130, but the land use permits can be a new garage, a commercial building, things like that, so it's not just housing. Sign permits, 49. Notice of violations we issued were 9. Most of the time we start with, before you issue a notice of violation, just communication. You have to document it for the magistrate that you've given people the chance to know that they are not in compliance with the code, and give them the chance to fix it before you issue an official notice of violation prior to issuing a ticket. So, Historic District Commission requests, we had 27 this year, which is quite a bit. We had 1 PUD, 1 SLUP, which was the Safe Harbor year-round extension, and 1 site plan review, and again, that was 124 West Front Street. The PUD we did was TC Millworks.
Millworks.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then moving on into some of the code enforcement activities, again, our code enforcement officer, the vast majority of the individual's day-to-day activity is overseeing the rental housing inspections that are required for any development that has 3 or more dwellings in it. And it's mostly a safety inspection, making sure windows open, fire alarms work, and things like that. Each of those units have to be inspected every other year, and that number is going to start going up quite a bit, because now the total number of units in the program is exceeding 2,000 now that the Legends is occupied out at Morgan Farms. We've had some other big residential developments get up and running. So that's where a lot of that time is spent with our code enforcement officer. Other than that, a lot of stuff you'll see there, sign violations, people putting them in the right of way, things like that. We do get twice a year a big uptick in brush within the streets department when people start putting their leaves in the street too early. You've got to go and have them rake them back on the curb and stuff like that. So that's about it. You know, some trash complaints, and as you can see through the list, it's kind of a miscellaneous spattering of different compliance issues that they've worked with throughout the year.
I will say there were pumpkins that went out in like December in the street, and I had a physical reaction. I felt so bad. I was like, oh no, that's long past that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
They were like obviously porch pumpkins that they just put in the road. And I was like, on snow? What are you
come back.
doing? Yeah.
Come back to their yard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be plowed up into their yard
Yeah.
before too long.
And that's what happens with people who put leaves out
It's
when
true.
the snow comes,
It's true.
or after they miss the last pickup.
Yeah. Yep.
Just sends it right back up in their yard.
Yep. So as you know, the planning department provides staff liaisons to 5 different boards and committees right now. So planning commission, we put together 15 packets last year. Historic district commission had 9 packets looking at their 27 items. The Grand Traverse Commons typically only meets 4 times a year. We did have a special meeting last year, moving forward with the zoning amendment that was held in November. And then Board of Zoning Appeals, as Mitch had mentioned, this is the first year in quite some time that there was 0 appeals requested through the BZA, so they haven't met. And then the Riparian Buffer Committee, which Leslie will be talking about more today, they met one time for the opportunity to bring back some of the draft materials and get some feedback on. And then, of course, we did have one joint meeting with the City Commission. All right, so again, we have to provide a list of attendance. In addition to the Planning Commission itself, we have representatives from this body serving on the Grand Traverse Commons Joint Planning Commission, the Board of Zoning Appeals, as well as the Riparian Buffer Committee. And then, I'm not going to go through all this list, but this is the bulleted list of Planning Commission meeting discussions. So Katie went through all the agendas for the year, just kind of summarizing them in some bullet points as a nice one-pager for us, as well as the actions taken by the Planning Commission and where some of them might sit, because there's things that you guys have completed, such as the short-term rentals that were moved forward, so it kind of gives you a snapshot of where we are there. So as I mentioned, we'll go through this real quick. So a couple of the highlights that we focused on this year as a commission and department were called out specifically. So there's a summary on the Riparian Buffer Committee, as well as one on the Community Development Block Grant, or the CDBG funding that Leslie has been administering the last 2 years. And then, of course, a little bit on housing reform. You know, one thing that I noticed that was somewhat interesting to me is that in 2024, we had 373 dwelling units permitted. Only 5 of those were under the new housing reform regulation. So that was about 1.3% of total. Although our overall housing units permitted dropped significantly this year, a greater percent of those were utilizing the 2023 housing reform zoning amendments. So we're seeing an uptick in that, more of that small-scale local development where people are choosing to build another addition on their property or ADU or things like that. And then, of course, the short-term rentals, which the Planning Commission finished and have passed on, so that is going through legal review right now, and we'll get to the City Commission at a future date. So one of the reasons why we're not asking for any action today is we would like to wait until the Planning Commission finishes its goals for this year that they want to work on, so we can put that into the report to signify to the City Commission some of the activities that the Planning Commission will be working on. Now, another thing that wasn't highlighted in the packet, but the act says that this report that's produced each year can include any recommendations from the Planning Commission that they want the City Commission to possibly consider that are outside the purview or the authority of the Planning Commission. So not trying to start a huge discussion now, but just know if there's ever anything lingering that you want to communicate up to them, this would be a great way to do that, as well as your 2 liaisons on the City Commission, Commissioners Treadwell and Anderson. So with that, again, just to recap, I love that staff put this in here, the planning department, with no help of me or Dave, won first place in the gingerbread contest this year. So, and then just put the staff in there at the end. So, any questions?
Mitch?
Yes, 2 things. One, it does say Board of Zoning Appeals met 0 times, but for just sake of consistency, I would like also in the year-end totals chart of the requests that have come forward to also say that there were 0 requests for variances.
Okay, we can look into adding that.
Well, like, it wouldn't be a slice, but it would just be on the side of it.
Yeah, to reflect that we didn't have any meetings, and that's because nobody brought anything forward. It's not because somebody
You were
brought
just
something forward and
snoozing.
it didn't go anywhere.
So you're thinking on this slide
Yes.
in one of those bullet points, okay?
And my other term is more stylistic. Can you use a different font for the headings?
I think it's so cute.
Okay, it's cute, but the L's, S's, R's, and lowercase m's, I find to be a little interrupting the readability.
Yeah, that's fair. Jackie?
I found the information comparing permits issued between 24 and 25 for dwelling units to be really insightful. Would it be possible to include the information for 2024 on renewals and licensing for short-term rentals, vacation home rentals, so that we can have a similar understanding of change year to year?
Yeah, we can look into that. We would just have to probably grab it from the past annual reports. I'll have Katie see if she can't find a way to incorporate that where it doesn't get too loud in the graph.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't like busy it up, I don't see why you couldn't just have like that snapshot.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Brian?
I like the fonts.
Oh, thanks, Brian.
However, you have too many commas in the last sentence of the first graph and the first page. You don't need any of those commas in there.
On
The very
pa-
first page, first paragraph, last sentence.
Department
Yeah,
administers
get rid of the
zoning
commas.
ordinance.
Comma causes a pause, makes the sentence awkward.
Additionally, department staff are members of the design team.
Department administers the zoning ordinance and oversees code enforcement and
Oh.
approval of site plans. Technically, you have one too many ands in there, too.
Oh.
Do you have any
You could
thoughts on
have-
'Cause we
Oxford
were-
Compass?
You could have zoning ordinance, comma.
Leslie and I were editing that on the
oversees-
fly.
Oversees, yeah, but sees.
Overseas, yeah.
Actually, it'd probably be like a semicolon, oversees code enforcement and approval of site plans.
All right, I changed it just now.
So, one other request, once the goals go in here, can we just, like, approve this thing and not review it again?
Oh, you mean when we,
When it comes back, let's
when we
just-
approve our goals and move those forward,
yes,
just
move
stick
those
them
on,
in?
the
Yeah,
changes that have been requested have been in there, so.
that
you
would
read it, and
require a
if
motion
one of your
tonight, right?
requests have
Yeah,
been-
and you could make a motion, it's a special meeting, so if you guys want to say, motion to approve the draft annual planning commission report with the edits identified in the meeting and future goals established incorporated.
Got that, that's my motion.
Yeah, were you writing that
Find it
down?
consistent with location, character, and extent.
So, no, basically approve the draft with changes and edits proposed in this meeting. And the addition of approved goals.
Are you making the motion, Brian?
That was
my
his
Oh,
motion, yeah.
Okay, second.
Any other comment before public comment? Great. Okay. Turning over to public comment on the Planning Commission's annual goals for 2020, or nope,
Annual
I'm so
report.
sorry, annual report. Goals are later. Seeing none, we'll close public comment on that item and come back to the group. Any other discussion before the vote? Jackie?
I'm going to withhold approval on the motion on the table. I'd like to see the final result before I approve it.
Okay. Do you need anything from us? Okay.
No, I wrote it down.
Well, let's vote on the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No?
And we need a roll call vote then. No, you're fine.
By Brian. Sorry, it's being really slow. But Commissioner O'Brien,
Yes.
Commissioner Swanson,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
No.
Commissioner Treadwell,
Yes.
Commissioner McGillivary,
Yes.
Commissioner Deturi.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Katie. Okay. Riparian buffer? Is that where we're at?
Yeah, we're down to the
Okay.
next one, so we'll
On to
turn
the
that
next one.
over to Leslie for the star.
I hope everyone is so excited about this item. It's been a long time coming.
Well, thank you. And so tonight I just wanted to give you an update, as promised, on where we are right now and kind of get a gut check and find out from the Planning Commission if we're kind of going in the right direction. We will need probably one more meeting of the Riparian Buffer Committee on this topic, and we are wrapping putting up the map experience that will go along with this so that people can check out different properties and see how the buffer impacts those properties. And because you haven't officially seen this before, I'm just going to quickly tell you what it's all about. And I do want to let you know that the Riparian Buffer Committee has been great to work with. I kind of took them through a really tedious process of setting goals and kind of setting the scene and figuring out what we were going to be trying to accomplish. And so they did come up with a list of goals that would they would structure the work around. And those goals are listed on the first page of my memo in your packet, which are to establish multiple zones and treat them slightly differently, to include preferred planting lists within the ordinance, to be context and location sensitive, to restrict impervious surfaces in the buffer areas and create regulations that promote renaturalization where practical, preserve view sheds, removal of or containment of invasive species, and to keep fertilizers, pesticides, and chemical pollutants away from the shoreline. Those were the main things they were concerned about, and they wanted to be sure were in some way incorporated. So in running through everything and going through the zoning ordinance overall, we found a lot of areas that touch on riparian buffer related regulations and that needed some tightening up. So that's the first component of the information you've been provided. And then the second section is an article or a chapter that would become part of the zoning ordinance, but would on its own contain all of the riparian buffer regulations, so that it would all be in one place. And then those other things just provide continuity throughout the ordinance. I have to take a little aside and let you know that the last time the Riparian Buffer Committee met, they had asked that that I think it was that to make all of these actually live in a different way within the ordinance. And because we are going through the updating of the zoning ordinance, we thought we might be replicating work and or losing some of the buffer regulations if we did that. So just a technical note for those of you on this planning commission that also serve on that committee, that was asked for at the last meeting, and that is not fully reflected in this version. And Jackie looks really confused. I can explain a little bit better.
We wanted like we were asking a lot of Leslie to do a full rewrite of the full ordinance that had been given to us. And I think what Leslie's trying to say is, knowing that we had this impending potential rewrite, she didn't follow through with that full last draft. Is that what you mean? Yeah.
Right.
Because there were some, a couple edits here and there. So I think she has her notes, it seems like.
So if I can paraphrase and make sure I'm understanding, what we're looking at tonight doesn't necessarily fully reflect the input of the Riparian Buffer Committee, but it's in that direction.
No, it
No?
does. What it doesn't do is, they had asked for it to be sliced and diced a different way.
Okay.
And we left it more in one cohesive piece so that it'll be easier to incorporate when Sean does the full rewrite.
Because right now, the way, I think the point Leslie's getting to is when we undergo a rewrite, the structure of the ordinance is going to change. So the format of how it's presented will be changing through that process. Because right now, we don't have
a chapter.
Centralized location for a lot of because we already have a lot of riparian standards in effect, but they're just peppered throughout. So it's not like a cohesive chapter or section, like an overlay district where you can go and get all the regulations in one shop. So I think if I'm hearing you right, the content reflects everything that the committee wanted to hear. The format of it is still evolving as we work on this zoning rewrite and figure out how it's going to lay out within that.
That works for me.
Sorry that it took 4 times to.
So, I know you have a question, but let me just quickly run through a couple of other things. I can tell you at a high level what it does. It creates 2 zones for all the riparian lands. So the first large area, which is either 25 or 50 feet, depending on the water type, is the area within which you can't put any buildings or hard surfaces, where there would be restrictions on placing, for instance, snow piles or using any chemical pesticides or fertilizers. So that is called the riparian buffer zone. There's some other restrictions within that. It gets pretty detailed. But then there's the critical zone. So in every district, it's the first 10 feet. In our interactions with the Watershed Center, they understand that, we're a developed community with a lot of developed shoreline. They'd ideally like to see very deep riparian buffer areas because it's not completely possible in the city. What they really focus on is those first 10 feet where they would like to see the most restrictions because that's where we can have the most impact on water quality, on pollutants entering the water, and maintaining, existing wildlife and all the other things that that are important about maintaining that critical area. We still have a couple of things to kind of tighten up a little bit. Right now, there is not a planting list, so we need to add a planting list. We need to decide whether the Boardman Ottaway Lake will be a 50-foot buffer or 25-foot buffer. The building setback is 50, but right now we've kind of settled on 25 feet. So that's kind of an open question. And we really need to get a little bit tighter with the tree removal and the percentage of the buffer area that can be either cleared or used for other purposes and not left completely naturalized. So those are things we kind of need to tighten up. If you have any input on any of those, I'd love to hear it, and certainly able to answer any questions you have.
Just for some added context before you go, Brian, the list that we were going to have, the plantings list, I think we were going to reference like a state list or like local agency lists. Is that right, Leslie, based on memory? Because we didn't want to like have to always be updating our ordinance to then go reference the list as it grew.
Right.
Okay, go ahead, Brian.
So thanks to the committee for doing the work they've done, and for staff, Leslie. A lot of great stuff in here. I do have some questions, and I know some of this may just be the way the summary is written. But like right off the bat, summary riparian buffer zone. In the chapter, you talk about the exceptions. You talk under the first zone, under A, 50% of the buffer to create a view shed. So are you referring to 50% square footage, or are you referring to 50% of the length of the waterfront? And then you make a reference in B, you talk about 50% of the width of the waterfront. So are those the same, or I'm assuming we're talking about you can take 50% of the width and not 50% of however you want to work it out. Okay.
I think the general idea is linear 50%, but that 50% is still a little bit in flux. So that number, I think, has not been landed on yet, but the concept would be up the width.
Which is a concept, if I recall, actually started with the last riparian effort that you served on.
I've never served on a
I was on
riparian.
both.
Anna,
I was on both, yeah.
You might want to consider a maximum. That's my recommendation to the committee, is you know, if you've got 300 feet, do you really need to clear 150 of it?
Are you saying maximum percentage or maximum number?
Maximum number.
Okay.
So for instance, like we allow rooftop amenities that are 20% of the rooftop or 1650. So 1650 is 20% of a typical lot. So we put an upper threshold, so in case there is a really big lot with a big building, now it's not suddenly essentially a second
So it's
story.
not solely relying on that percentage, but it also has an upper max.
Right.
And you'll see that a
Yeah.
lot in our zoning ordinance where it's this percent or that, whichever's less
Yeah.
applies.
And there's sometimes, back when we had really low water and everyone was trying to clear it, a lot of times they just had you could get a percentage or a maximum. I think it was 50, maybe 100 feet, but depending, for the state, you know, they would allow it. So that was my question on that. Don't like you said some review and recommendations from staff. Don't like fences allowed in the riparian buffer on Grand Traverse Bay. People put it right down to the water's edge and trying to block people who have access along public beaches. So, which raised another question for me. Well, I'll get further down. And I don't like number 3, specifically allowing impervious paving materials within the buffer area. It doesn't really say which buffer area, you know, but impervious pavers, I'm not sold on them for long-term use. I've heard some people question their ability to remain pervious, but I suppose it depends on what they're planning on using. So if you're going to pursue that, I think you should be really specific on what you're going to allow and how you define that. Waterfront guidebook.
Where are
I
you,
think that's-
Brian?
I'm
Can
on
you-
staff level review and recommendations.
Okay, okay.
I'm still in the very beginning.
Yeah, I was like, well, I think
I
I'm
haven't
too
got-
far.
I'm gonna
Okay.
I'm just gonna go through that, and then I'm gonna
Yeah.
stop, and let other people comment.
Okay,
Because then
thank
I
you.
got a bunch more comments through the rest of it.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm assuming this is to get feedback from us
Mm-hmm.
as commissioners.
As long as Leslie can keep up, I'm fine with it.
I'm just,
We always
these are
have it
just
on
my
tape, too,
comments.
so
Yeah.
we watch a
Good
lot of
call.
PC meetings after that.
Onward, then.
So I just, you know, so 4 and 5, it just seems like a lot of staff work, and I would not want to see the ordinance itself, which is partially a protective ordinance, be held up by work that can be done after the ordinance is. I mean, I think they're good ideas to give people a better idea of what we're looking for in development, what kind of trees, all that stuff, but
Maybe a one-pager?
I don't know, I'm saying is that
Not
you
even.
could do whatever you want. You can make a textbook if you want, I don't care. That's up to, you know, the committee and staff. What I'm saying is, I don't want to wait till December for the textbook.
Yeah.
I'd really like to see this move forward.
Yeah.
This, you know, be done by summer. Maybe it's unrealistic, but I'm just saying is I wouldn't delve too much into that. That's something come after the ordinance, because it's really about getting the buffer zones in there. And you've already answered the question. You know, consider a 50-foot riparian buffer zone on the Boardman Ottaway Lake. Current draft is 25 feet. I think you got to ask yourself, you know, I'm seeing you're already getting pushing from probably the watershed center, and they're going to have a reason why they would want 50 over 25. Like to see the impact on Boardman Lake for nonconformance. But the other issue is that when it comes back to us, I'd like to see their reasoning. Why? What's the difference between 50 and 25 or 100, 25? So how much does each 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 feet matter to protecting the watershed? So, again, I would farm that out to them. They're happy, I'm sure, to come explain it.
Jerry?
Yeah, I won't try to get ahead of myself, but so obviously the map is something I might have new staff member working on it, but I've been helping him. And one thing we will be able to incorporate, which we've talked about, is showing showing what 50 looks versus 25. So you could like visually see the difference overlaid on the aerial and all of that. But one of the issues that and I think the Watershed Center brought it up, I'm still trying to wrap my head around, is so the city doesn't really have we know the bays, we know Boardman Lake, we know Boardman River, and we know Kids Creek, but then there's these tributaries, which I know are mentioned, and how we've historically gotten this data, the state of Michigan provides like a water line layer, which isn't very accurate. They're working on improving it. So over time, city staff is like we have a high resolution aerial, so we're able to kind of, in a lot of places, actually see the creek or the tributary and adjust that line. But when we start applying these buffers, these buffers are based on these lines. Now in GIS data, it's not survey grade, it's a representation. So one thing I think we'll run into, and we've already found a couple areas where like there's no line, but faintly you can see there's some sort of water, and we saw that at the Ramsdale property, right? The state didn't have that listed. It's not listed as any kind of tributary. So we need to figure out, one of my ponderings is how do we determine what determines that that's now a tributary, and who makes that determination? Do you need to hire someone to go or is staff just looking at it on a computer and drawing a line in, and now we've set this as a new creek?
So we do it I'll ask her one part of the question first. So when they come in to build anything, they have to have a survey with the
Correct.
edge there. So we put that on the applicant to pay for that survey, to have it stamped that like this is official. And they also will, like on the shoreline, they'll survey where the water line is at the moment, but then they'll do a topo survey to figure out where that ordinary high water mark is, which is an elevation, and then they'll draw the setback from the ordinance from there. And so that's what we use for that. But you're right, I was thinking about that this weekend too. The Ramsdale property, tributary AA is another one that doesn't like have an official name, just this.
Well, and the other one that we've worked on a separate project, Willow Creek, which is not a named creek that runs through, behind Randolph coming into Monroe. And it's clearly there on the imagery, but the state doesn't have it. And so I guess that's where I'm thinking, yeah, maybe it's triggered when there's an actual site review. Then we'd want to make sure we're adding that into our database. But I guess that's where we need to know, like, what liberty do we have to just draw a line? And now we've created because it'll be clear on the map that it's like, well, there's definitely a creek here. Why isn't there a line? And that's just where I want to make, that determination. And I know the watershed called out some of that too. Like, well, we know Willow Creek, but that's not a named creek. Engineering's like, it shows it on old plat, but it's never technically and I don't know what constituted it being a real creek.
Well, I'm wondering, and it would just be speculation that it may not be navigable by the state's definition.
Right,
The
like,
navigable waterway, which is why they don't have line work for it, but it still contributes to our overall water quality. I think it would be helpful for department staff if those unnamed water bodies were still somewhat delineated by GIS on the map. So when we're looking at a property with an applicant, we know that there's a water body there that does have to have a setback applied to it. So maybe we can coordinate on how we do that for just internal administration of it.
Right.
That way we can communicate it to applicants too, like, hey, you do have a water flowing on your property, you'll have a setback from that.
I think that, because I've thought about it a lot, Jerry and I had lots of conversations about this. I think two things are going to happen. One is going to be that there are streams or, moving water that don't show up on any map, that move around a little bit or kind of act as, like a little channel, and that we need to make sure that we define these, whether the definition is those that are named or, tributaries that are mapped, and that the other ones, because they are seasonal, they're, man-made potentially, or I think a lot of those are part of a wetland. So they kind of meander through a wetland, so they're regulated as wetlands to begin with. So I think they're less likely to be developed. And even if it's not a regulated wetland, they're hydric soils. I think, or there's a lot of topography, like in the case of Willow Creek. So I think they're, by default, kind of in no man's land. Maybe we need to talk to some more people or some geologists to find out if we have confidence that we don't need to worry about them. But those are some of the finer points that we do want to make and make sure that we've covered in this ordinance, because once you start looking at aerial photos and trying to figure out some of these, it does start to get tricky.
Yeah, and we hadn't mentioned tributaries. We hadn't, I think they probably came up, but we hadn't defined them in this. We defined creek, and we defined the lake and the bay and the river as all separate entities that we wanted to address. But I do agree that maybe there's a tributary unnamed appearing via aerial, group that we also have to define.
Yeah, because the state does have like Kids Creek listed and Mitchell Creek
definitely
in their database. Yeah. And then they do have unnamed tributaries flowing in. But anyway, we can look at that obviously, in lieu of the map coming out. Once the maps, people can look at the map. I'm just getting ahead of it a little bit because we're
That's fair.
still.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Brian?
think we're all thinking the same thing too, so it's good
Yeah.
that we're.
To that point, I would like,
Sorry. Brian was waiting so patiently.
I just had a question for,
Yeah.
you talked about you'd see it on plans and site plans for commercial development. You don't require a topographic survey for residential development, do you?
We,
If I put an addition on my house, would you know that I'm building it over a stream? If it's,
in the department, we know where the creeks are, because we've been dealing with them for a long time. I'll give you an example. If someone is building a new building on the bay, then yes, we have that all surveyed. They have to do that. If the house
but you don't necessarily have a topographic map to show that it is, to show where that average high water mark for the stream would be, or even the center of the stream would be. Hence, you would require the developer or the builder or the property owner to get that information. That would seem overly burdensome to me if you start requiring topographical surveys for housing developments or additions or ADUs. But I appreciate Jerry bringing this up because it was a question I had about the whole issue with unnamed streams and tributaries, because it hasn't really been addressed, and good luck with that one. I'm just saying that, there might be a better way to do it that's simpler for streams and tributaries.
Well, and there are times too where we can use some common sense, right? Like if there's an existing house on the waterfront and they're building an addition on the opposite side of the waterfront, then that doesn't impact the setbacks. The addition's going the opposite way.
Well, I understand that, but that's not, you're talking waterfront, you're talking about lake. I'm talking about
lake
a
bay.
small stream
Yeah.
that nobody knows is there except the property owner or a few people in the neighborhood. Because it's a small stream and it's never gets any bigger than this, but it's a stream and it's a tributary.
So I
Or
think
maybe a
what,
snow melt, it gets this wide, who knows? I've seen those too.
yeah,
Seen them. But, so that's what I'm saying is, instead of like having them do that,
Yeah.
You gotta come up with, if it's an issue and when you go after streams, I think you have to try and get it, simplify it for, non-commercial developments or non-multifamily. So additions, things like that. You have a stream, you draw a line, you make sure it's not within that line. If it's within the line, then they can go get a survey done.
I think we'll, in continuing to work with the GIS department, be able to strengthen that tool. It sounds like what I'm hearing is we probably need a proper inventory of these unnamed waterways, since the state's not providing them, so that we can mark them, and we'll talk about how we go about getting that established. Then at least we have a graphic tool that we can use as a starting point when we're going through these to say, like, you know, where at least we have the line work to do an internal measurement off of with our aerial stuff. And it's not as accurate as a survey, but sometimes if we know you need to be 25 feet and I can verify that you're 75 feet based on your plans, then we're not going to order a survey because that's determined.
You know, I think the other thing is, just as a practical matter, I know that Eagle, they have like a whole series of videos that show regulators how to determine where the ordinary high water mark is, because it's not necessarily an elevation, it's a visual line, and, you know, that can be marked and measured from, and it can be done with, you know, almost no equipment and without use of a surveyor. I know that the zoning administrator has ordered surveys for particular situations, but I don't think we always need them, and there are ways that are sanctioned and supported by Eagle, and it's how they do their work as well, because it's kind of a nebulous line, and it does, over many years, it can change as well, because, you know, that predominance of where the water is can start to shift over 10 or 20 years.
Good question. Does the city actually have the ordinary high water mark lines in the GIS system for Kids Creek, Boardman Lake?
Only
Ordinary river
Boardman
and-
Lake is regulated by a dam, so there's an elevation for that. And there's technically an elevation, well, there's an ordinary high water mark elevation associated with the bay. But even with that, I think you still would default to the visual line on the land.
What does that mean?
That there's a,
I mean,
there's a location where
Vegetation
the
shows
vegetation,
the indication of water and erosion.
it doesn't sound like it works, but it works, and that's how they do it. And, you know, it's more obvious on like a creek and on other bodies of water, but there is a method of doing it that does not always involve a surveyor. And that's what the surveyor does. They don't use an elevation, except in the case of the lake, with a elevation that's determined through the court by the dam existence. The surveyor does go out and visually identify the location and then converts that onto the survey drawing. So it's not an exact science.
Mitch?
Yes. Getting literally into the weeds, I do like to have protection for as many permanent watercourses as we can identify, tributaries, places like Willow Creek, unnamed streams. But I do recognize that we don't necessarily have them mapped. They can be more subject to change. And looking at Willow Creek specifically, yes, it has a natural watercourse coming out of Hickory Hills, but basically as soon as it gets to the residential neighborhoods, it has a watercourse that is almost entirely man-made in terms of when people have it flowing through their through their backyard. They have their garage over here, and they have the creek right here with, maybe it's concrete blocks, maybe it's some natural-looking stones, maybe it's something else, but they have shifted it this way or that way. And then under the roads, and then before it enters Grand Traverse Bay, it is fully within our stormwater culvert system. So yes, I'd like that to be protected, but I'd like us also to recognize that these things have shifted, and frankly, for something like that, that is a non-navigable waterway, yes, it does have some regulation, but it is also possible for a homeowner or property owner to, as they're doing a development, be in compliance with this, not by moving their proposed development farther from the creek, but moving the creek a little further away. And as, yes, that's not something you can do with the Boardman River or even with Kids Creek, but with something that's a foot wide, it is possible to bring in engineers and do the work and create a stream bed that is just as good for wildlife and habitat.
I do think.
And that, like when Munson daylighted a part of Tributary A along 6th Street, that had been something that was either fully underground or just in a ditch behind a building, and now it's a section of stream. It is a lovely section that, a little cold right now, but 2 months ago there would have been steelhead in there, and there will be steelhead again in a couple months, so.
Jackie?
I think we all received the email from the Watershed Center earlier about, that flagged this issue of missing tributaries along with some other language and possible content issues. And I wondered, would there be any receptivity or value to asking a representative of the Watershed Center to sit in on the remaining meetings coming up for the riparian buffer committees to help advance
They've
it
been at
through
every
it?
one.
Every meeting.
Every meeting?
Everyone.
As public commenters or as participants?
Both.
Both.
It's been both.
Okay.
And both iterations of riparian buffer committee,
Okay.
because there's been like 2 iterations.
And I've met with them a few times and sat down and talked in more detail about some of the things that they had issues with or concerns about. And, they directed us to some other regulations that they liked. It's been a good working relationship. And their initial letters were a lot longer. They're getting a little shorter, so I see that
This
as
is a good sign.
Yeah.
They're drilling down. This is
Great,
good.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
To
Brian?
the point.
Oh.
Go ahead.
To the point of mapping, another resource that could be used is with the MS4 work, identification of stormwater outfalls that have dry weather flow. Especially if we're looking into the future, some of those, like the outfall for Willow Creek, do have a daylighted perennial stream upstream. Other places it might be much more hidden, and I wouldn't say that just because you've got a former stream that's now completely in stormwater pipes underneath your property, you have to have a setback from that. But if we're looking into the future, we can have that flagged in the system so that if it does get daylit, then it will be part of our inventory.
Brian?
I think it's clear from the report that the tributary streams is an area that you're still looking to delve into and address. So I'm fine with that. I understand that and I appreciate it's going to be more difficult. And that's why I'm suggesting you might want to try and actually just create a line from the center of a stream. Now, as far as I know, for most of these smaller streams, that's not a lot of difference. But if it is, then that's something else. I don't know. That's for the committee to figure out. Sorry, hate assigning work like that. But I'm going to go back to the whole, in the ordinance, you create this border that's called waterside lot lines. And you define it basically as the ordinary high water mark. So it's not really a lot line because property lines aren't really following the ordinary high water mark. So I don't like the use of creating a new term that's defined, that already has a definition. And then I want to reiterate, I think that, I understand what you're talking about, by, the visual line for, trying to figure out that ordinary high, the ordinary high water mark for a stream or a tributary or Kids Creek or the river. It's not really defined. And so, and I can understand why it's an inexact science. Elevations technically are defined. Literally, I can take my phone out and walk along a beach and show you what the elevation is. And if you know what on the Great Lakes, if you know what the elevation is, you know where the ordinary high water mark is. So, church surveyors have a more sophisticated method, but, it's there. I just think that it'd be helpful if the city could make that determination for the main bodies of water. So when you look at it, and we're talking the river, the lake, the bays, and Kids Creek, and kind of so people know on their property where their 10-foot buffer will start, so by creating that line for GIS, I think that's just going to be the practical thing. And if they want to challenge your line location, they can certainly get a survey and do that. But otherwise, they know, like you said, common sense. Looks to be here, I'll stay a foot away from it. So,
For added context, we did have a very long session that involved the city attorney, who spent a very long time defining ordinary high water mark and explaining all of the depths of that that went into the creation of this. I do think that that's something to run by her for sure. Like, can we even do that? Because in terms of the enforcement, I think it makes sense. I don't think it came up with her, or it's been so long at this point that I don't remember what she said about it. But
I guess, and again, I don't know how much time you all want to commit tonight, but one reason I'm smiling as you say that is because I do have a long history in this discussion in Long Lake Township, where it was a very, very big issue there for a long time. And in that location, there's lots of bodies of water, and none of them are dam regulated or have a specific elevation. And there was a huge movement by a huge number of people who wanted to do exactly what you just said, come up with an elevation for each of those bodies of water. And going through a whole process of talking to surveyors and geologists and trying to figure out what that would entail, it would be probably millions of dollars and many years worth of survey work to come up with that. But I do agree that there is a basis for that on the bay and for sure on the lake, Boardman Lake. And, I think what we found out in Long Lake bears out why the standard that I've seen every place is that there's two different ordinary high water marks, or two ways that it's treated. On the regulated dam-controlled water bodies, there is an elevation that is in the zoning ordinance, and on other bodies of water, it's defined as the ordinary high water mark, the way that Eagle does it.
and I understand that, and what I'm saying is, and I'm not saying that this line has to be the definitive, this is the line and you must meet it. I'm saying this line is your guide. So if you're doing something and you want to put it in the setback, okay, and look like you're right on the 50-foot mark, I think then staff has the ability to request a survey. okay? If you're, at the 55-foot mark of that guiding line, then I think staff has the ability to say, close enough. Okay? And you can approve that permit. And that would be my point, is I'm talking about it as creating a guide, especially for Kids Creek and the river. The river is mostly commercial development, so it's going to be surveyed anyways. It's not a big issue. But I think there are only a couple houses, maybe even not even that. But for Kids Creek, I think you got to even if you just do it visually, using, your overhead shots and, whatever you can observe and make those decisions, so.
Yeah, we do in practice a little bit of that now. We have our tax parcel viewer that we can use to rough estimate, but if we measured something, we're like, well, it's 50.2 feet, you just made it. We know it's not accurate at that level, but if it's, we measure it like, oh, you're sitting 60 feet back and you only need to be 50. We know it has enough exception for that, but I think we could get some line work in there to do what you're saying, Brian, in the same fashion.
And, that's part of what this map, this buffer can do, is identify those that are clearly meeting the requirements and help to identify the ones where it's close enough to do further research or call for a survey. And, because these regulations kind of mimic what is already in place, that, structures can't be within that. We're restricting more structures, but certainly buildings can't be. So there's kind of a process in place right now, and I think this mapping will help it. And I think the tricky ones are going to be like decks and things like that, that right now can be in those setbacks, that these requirements are going to not allow. And so those are the ones where,
According to this, decks are allowed.
I'm sorry, like patios and paved areas.
Walkways.
Impervious.
There's like, I think especially on the bay, there's a lot of stuff that's in that, on some locations.
And I understand what you're saying. But they're already existing, so
Right, so those can remain.
these can't be improved.
Correct. Or replaced.
Or
But
expanded.
yes.
I have 4 more comments.
Okay.
Anybody else want to jump in?
Jackie was ready with one, I think, so between the two
Please,
of you.
I defer.
Yeah.
Okay. Some of these have already been answered. One of the things that you provide, Kids Creek setbacks that leave it up to the planning director to determine whether or not the new ordinance makes a lot unbuildable. And at first I was going to ask you, what does that mean, unbuildable? Does that mean, and my second question is, isn't this really a question for the ZBA? I mean, they're not getting any business. If we create a lot and someone wants to build on this lot, and it's now been, they can't put what they need on there because of this new setback, isn't that something that's outside of their control that they can go to the zoning board of appeals for?
That exists.
They could, they do put throughout the ordinance different exceptions that staff can administer under certain conditions and stuff like that. So that, I think when that was put in, because that was applied to Kids Creek, I think it was, that it's a when we did the housing stuff, I think we added a 25-foot setback to Kids Creek because there never was a setback to it, with the ability of staff to reduce it to 10 if you couldn't build it. Part of the thinking at that time was a typical city lot is 50 by 165. If you have the creek running down the middle of it and you got to go 25 feet of either side of the creek, then you can't really build on the lot, and then it would be a takings. So we just try to provide some flexibility so that common sense decisions can be made in the real time.
I'm just raising the point because, you know, I'm not a fan of giving as much as we give the planning director ability to make changes. I've never been a fan of that. No, not a personal reflection on you. I've been opposed to it from the get-go. So I'm just questioning whether or not, you know, like I said, the ZBA needs some work. But that's, you know, that's a commission decision. So just something to think about. When kids, so you refer to Kids Creek again about being below grade. And I did look it up, and apparently in Michigan, creeks are considered at grade unless covered or whatever, or generally it's considered at grade, but does everyone else realize that it's considered at grade? And then I don't understand why we even care about the setback for the streams when they're, I mean, do we really need a 25-foot setback if the stream is nothing but going through a drain pipe in the city? What's the purpose of the setback? It's enclosed in a pipe or a tunnel or causeway, et cetera.
The reason for that was it could preserve the opportunity to daylight the stream in the future without possibly causing future property damage. Because there have been some asks. I was going to mention it earlier. I think Eagle does play a big role in that because our zoning administrator was telling us in Slabtown there was a house that does have the tributary in a pipe underground going through their yard, and they wanted to have it moved so they could develop the property better, and Eagle said no. So it stays in the pipe underground. So we just wanted to make sure we weren't boxing ourselves in by allowing development to get too close to that underground creek, so that in the future, if there was an opportunity to daylight it like Munson did, that it wouldn't be prevented by the development that we allowed.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Which I will say, that's going to be a very heavy lift to daylight creeks on private property, but there's always an opportunity.
That's it for me.
Jackie.
I like it.
I am going to reiterate the point that Brian brought up recently that also appeared in the Watershed Center's list of comments, and that has to do with the granting of variances from setbacks, and the point of view of the Watershed Center supports and aligns with Mr. McGillivary's viewpoint, and comments had to do with both transparency, that if these are handled by the Board of Zoning Appeals, that there will be a more public and transparent process, and consistency, and that transparency can often, or lack of transparency, can often lead to legal challenges. And so I think reviewing that part of the draft would be appropriate, and I'm gonna support the idea of asking our BZA to become engaged in any requests for variances from the established setbacks.
Thank you. Mitch?
Yes, I'd like to echo people on either side of me in saying that we do have a role for the BZA, and I feel that just as if somebody has a proposal on Grand Traverse Bay that they want to build closer to Lake Michigan than this would allow, and they think that their lot, for whatever reason, is a unique enough situation, that would go to the BZA. And I'd say to apply that to all the waterways that we're covering under this is more transparent and just fair, and it prevents future disputes of, we passed this new ordinance, but then my neighbor built a house that I think is in violation of it, and it didn't go through any public hearing or public process. And going back to a point that was raised earlier, by Commissioner McGillivray. I understand the desire, especially say if you're right next to Bryant Park, to have a fence that runs along your property line within this setback. But that situation, one, it does unfairly restrict the access of the public to public use of the waterfront, even if it's in front of somebody else's house. And two, I think that we just should have a hard line against fences in the buffer area at all, because as we saw, was it 4 years ago when we did the tour and had the fence across Kids Creek, that not just is a barrier to people, but it presents a barrier to wildlife, to the connectivity of the waterfront corridor. And yes, I can understand the desire if you're next to a beach or next to a park that you want to have a fence to keep people from wandering into your lawn, yard. But I've seen in other communities where that leeway can lead to people actually putting fences on the public land and further restricting the use of the public to use public rights of way.
Happened once in this community.
Yeah, I think we felt pretty strongly about fences, so, but as a committee
I'd say
did.
that's one of the things that should fall completely under police power rather than just zoning.
Any other, Jackie?
Question in terms of completion of next steps and wrapping this up. Does the committee have any insights about timing?
I'm making a face and looking to Leslie because I don't know.
Well, as we'll discuss in a few minutes when we get to the goals of the Planning Commission, this is your top priority. So, I think a couple of other things have fallen off of my plate. I think now that we have a GIS specialist on board again, some of the intricacies of the stream, we might be able to move forward without completely, recreating a whole layer. And so, all I can say is as soon as possible. We definitely recognize this is a high priority. It would be nice to get it behind us and start to work on other things on your list.
And in terms of the committee, I don't think they want to meet another season. They want to meet one more time. That's what they were told. Get one more pass at it to then pass back to us. We don't need to meet every month like we were doing a couple of years ago.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other riparian buffer thoughts, comments, concerns? Okay, I'm going to open public comment on riparian buffer. Item. Seeing nothing, I'll close public comment on that agenda item. I do need to use the restroom. Do we all mind if we take a 5-minute break and return at 8:05?
To discuss goals.
Okay, great. Do I have to say anything else, or is that it? Okay.
Say we're in recess.
Perfect. In recess. We're in recess for 5 minutes. We'll return in 1 minute.
Pandora,
Like random things
Spotify,
that you don't, yeah.
NBC Sports,
Yeah.
Hulu.
Break into your
We do have everybody, okay.
That's probably someone else's.
Yeah, we're
that was
here.
my friend's, Daniel's email.
Oh, I want Daniel's.
But I told him, like, I can't get it to work.
Yeah, it was really, I panicked when I couldn't get it to work. Well, okay, great. What do I say when we return? We're just returning from our 5-minute break. Thank you all so much for that. And we're on to the last agenda item, which is E, continued discussion on our goals.
So this is me again, and I took what I got from your last meeting. We did get a couple of emails, and so those are incorporated here. We didn't have any other motions or requests, but the changes that I made were to put the repairing ordinance up front and indicate that that's the highest priority. Under the second goal about communications, to add a goal that kind of covered the discussion, I hope. The way it reads is enhanced tracking and reporting on progress toward achieving 2026 goals. So whether that becomes something on our website, whether it's, reporting or tracking on your agendas, we have a goal that's a little bit broadly written. There was the point brought up last time about the building design discussion for the zoning ordinance update. And we had something close to that, which was explore creating building design standards. So I'm not sure if that was missed last time, but I just expanded it to clearly say including building materials. And in the same vein, even though it was kind of built into the zoning ordinance update, updating the PUD regulations, including minimum size, that's specifically called out here. And then just as a placeholder and a reminder that it's always an overarching goal to expand housing opportunities, that was brought back in again. So if this looks like it's close, we can add it back into the annual report, but this is the time to make some more changes. These are your goals, so.
Okay. Jackie?
I just thought I should update the commission in terms of city commission action that would be related to this. Last night, there was a fairly robust discussion with the consultant from Future IQ about objectives and key results that the city commission wanted to adopt out of the strategic plan. And so we had a unanimous adoption. If anyone wants to take a look at the packet from last night, they're welcome to. But I will be sending on to you, based on those decisions, some suggestions for not only fleshing out, and I think you did a good job of capturing the discussion from last time, but fleshing those out, aligning them a bit more closely with what happened at the city commission level, and then also going to the extent of identifying what gets, which pillars are being supported, and which policy and programming actions are integrated within those goals. So I did a few samples, 3 of them, and if you can help me to share that with the rest of the commission at the appropriate time, I'd appreciate that.
Okay. I'm not seeing, well, I'm seeing some faces look at me. Brian?
Okay, so I didn't like half these things that are goals that are in the master plan, but I approved the master plan because, I'm not gonna vote it no on a couple things I don't like. So I will tell you right now, so what I don't like about these goals, I'm still not supportive of enhanced tracking and reporting on progress toward achieving 2026 goals.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a make-work project. It doesn't do anything for us. I mean, look at our goals. Does anyone think we can accomplish these goals, all of these goals, in,
No.
in 2026? I mean, we can't, you've got a goal of complete studies and enhanced research to inform zoning ordinance rewrite and address community goals. Okay, that's fine, and that will take at least 6-7 months. And I'm assuming you're gonna do that to help inform the rewrite, and which is a separate goal up higher, complete full zoning ordinance rewrite reorganization. Most communities take over a year to do this. And I don't know why we think we can do that. Now, if we get no projects all year long, and we were completely in control of our agenda, and we could dictate to staff to drop those other 5 organizations that they have to coordinate with in the city, and those other groups and the other departments in the city, then I think we could accomplish that. But we're going to complete the riparian ordinance. We'd be lucky to get done by June, okay? There's still clearly a lot of work that's got to be done on the back end of this. And all you need is one major project to come in, and that all halts. So, that's my goal. But to get that done, and, basically complete the full zoning ordinance rewrite and consider electric vehicle infrastructure and private site plan approval process. Don't even know what that means. Create zoning standards that require parking areas for new commercial and multiple family developments to be EV ready. Every time you require something like that, you raise the cost of housing. Supposedly making housing more accessible and affordable is one of our goals, so those are in direct conflict. When you want to require it, it's one thing. If you require it, it's a regulation. If you don't require it and they want to do it because it's an advantage to them, that's different. You're also going to rezone the West Front Street. That's a 3-month process right there. We're going to explore creating building design standards for new commercial development. That's a couple months, And remember, that's just for us. If we just have one study session, introduce it, hold a public hearing on it, and then pass it on to the city commission, and hopefully they take action on it. And if we did all this and sent it all to the city commission, it would blow their mind.
Yeah.
They're still sitting on something we sent them early last year. It keeps going on and on and on. I think we have too many goals. You want to have them in here, fine. But you want to evaluate the progress.
Yeah, I don't like that one either.
I'm just against that. Some of this stuff I'm not in favor of, but I've said my piece on these before. I've been in the minority. I can accept that. We just have a lot of goals.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff to do, and we're only going to do so much. So, and then to try and say, yeah, we got one thing done on our list of 5 goals, and already we review them once a year. So whether it's the summer or the fall, I don't care. So it's good to review them, but what we're doing now is fine. But spending staff time on the rest of it means you're not going to get, it's going to take longer to get the goals that are important to us done. That's my feeling on that. So.
Okay,
And if we need a
Jerry?
motion, I won't offer it or support it. I might vote for it, but I won't offer it.
Okay. Jerry?
I don't see anything wrong with having a lot of goals, as long as it's not, to Brian's point, if we only get one of these done, that shouldn't necessarily be a reflection that we didn't get
Yeah.
anything done. But I would rather have more goals than less, just because if for some reason we don't have a lot on our plate, we can go right to this list and start tackling it. So, I'm fine with them. I don't, again, their goals, it's always,
And these are the board's, the body's goals. So like, again, if we happen to really want to meet that first week of July, and we have a goal that still hasn't been touched, that could be something that we would agree to start to tackle. But it's not like these are requirements. These are not, we're not beholden to these. These are goals that we can work toward if and when staff have capacity. The city will have separate goals, and they will have their separate requirements of staff because they are the boss of staff, but we are a body a governing body. So, like an appointed body that is just tackling zoning. So we can have a list of extensive goals. I think I understand why somebody put expand housing opportunities on here. I'm fine with just leaving it. I am not comfortable with D under the enhanced tracking and reporting. I don't need that. I mean, I think we did an okay job checking in on it 2 or 3 times last year, and I'm fine with that. And I don't think we have to have it as, it feels silly to have as a goal for ourselves to meet. But those are just my thoughts. Everything else looks fine. I do agree with Brian. Every year that I have been here, the list is very overwhelming, very large, very extensive. That's just the nature of it, I believe.
I mean, some of these are staff goals. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, because this is so it's a goal of this planning commission and the
That we
planning
have of
right.
staff.
But it's almost more like a to-do list. And, you know, so we call them goals, but, you know, our goal is getting a riparian ordinance done in 2026. That would be a goal.
Yep.
Okay, then another goal might be some of the stuff you can put improved communication and staff level priorities. I don't even know what that means as a goal. I mean, just improve communication, you know, with who's? Communication, staff level priorities. You know, it's like we're gonna have we always hold one or more joint. You know, it's like, some of the stuff I find is fine. It's good stuff. You know, is that the most important thing for us right now? It'd be nice to have a dashboard for new development progress. So, you know, I'd love to get feedback on that. If other people would like it, I'd like it. So that would be like, you know, that would be a goal if it's possible. I mean, we looked at what they have. I don't want anything as detailed as Grand Rapids. You get lost in the weeds on that.
Well, they're a much larger city.
Yeah.
No, I know, but the detail is like overwhelming.
But
So-
I think to your point, Brian, that is more of a staff level goal.
Right.
We're not, I'm not an IT person. I'm not putting that dashboard together. And same thing with the enhanced tracking and reporting. That's also more of a staff goal. And therefore, it should probably, both of those could be removed. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're like
Leave
the
that to
action
staff.
items for the goal, the higher level goal that we have that's
yeah,
defined
but they're
above.
nothing that we can, like, I'm not taking action on that.
You know, for complete full zoning ordinance rewrite reorganization, I mean, if this is a goal for 2026, you should not take out the word complete. You know, it'd be like make significant progress. If we complete it, that would be great. But I just, you know, I've watched communities take 2, 3, 4 years to do this stuff. Now, I don't anticipate it being like that, but it could. So again, it's like, is that a realistic goal? Do that? So some of these are like, yeah, these are things we want to do. These are all the things we want to do in that rewrite. So, and then it's just, these are the tasks.
Yeah, they're basically like, how far will we get in the rewrite? That's how I thought about it, at least.
So it's not how I would do it, but honestly, I don't want staff to spend a lot of time playing with it.
Agreed.
So, you know.
This almost feels like things that came to mind for the rewrite, and we were like, we need to put these somewhere so that we don't forget them. That's what it feels like to me when
Yeah.
I read
Yeah.
some of these. It's, because, I mean, I
I'm
have an
pretty
18
sure we said those words out loud at a meeting
Yeah.
Yeah.
in
no,
the
we
fall.
did.
So I think you're right, yeah.
mean,
I have an
they need to
18-month-old
be
kid.
in
I
there.
forget everything
Yeah.
right now.
So-
So,
Well, I can tell you that most of these, like the kind of super detailed things that are part of the rewrite, those are all part of the action plan of your master plan. And that action plan was designed to be kind of the first few years. So the highest level things were on there.
Yeah.
Then there are a lot of other things on there that are not planning commission directly, not your purview. So they do come out seeming very oddly specific. And the other thing I'll tell you about the EV-related things is that we just got a grant for 40 hours of technical assistance, and it's focused on EV readiness regulations and some other things. So they're going to help us with that, for whatever that's worth. That's
I mean, it's
Yeah.
helpful because,
That's, I mean, the 40 hours, that's
Yeah.
great. But, you know, I don't mind the exploring of it.
Yeah.
I don't like the words that say we will
Mm-hmm.
we'll create these. And it was in the master plan, so I guess, you know, we're gonna be stuck with it, but, and that's fine. I understand how it got over there. I didn't like it when it was a master plan. I don't like it now because of the word create. I'd rather evaluate than create. I could be all for creation, but I might not be, so. Again, I honestly, I don't want to spend staff or anyone else's time on this, a lot more on these goals. I don't think it's that, I mean, it's nice to have goals, and I think we know what we want to get done. I think staff knows what we want to get done, what our priorities are. So I'm okay with it, but again, I won't make a motion, and I won't support a motion, but I will vote for whatever gets put out there just to move it along.
okay. Should we throw to public comment and then come back? I'm not seeing much.
Got
Okay,
public?
great. We'll go to public comment on the annual goals, and then we'll go back to discussing. Okay, seeing no public comment, we'll come back to the body. Are we ready for a vote? Do we want to, I mean, our only option is voting or postponing, and I think that we have, I'm pretty sure we did them in February last year, maybe, and it was not, I think it was the same kind of thing, like we dragged our feet on it an extra 2-bit, we talked about it at too many meetings, we were sick of it by the time they came back the third time. This is just my memory, but,
This is an idealized framework. It is what we are hoping to achieve, but we are not mandating that if we don't complete Goal 3A, we will get sued by the residents of Traverse City.
right.
So I'd like us to get the riparian buffer done and as much of the rewrite done and work on various other aspects. But I recognize that we can't make commitments to the future when so many things could yet happen. So, with that,
Make a motion.
yes. I move that we accept the planning commission goals as presented.
There were 2 hands that went up before the motion.
I'll go ahead.
Well, there were then 3 hands.
Support, doesn't matter. We need
Okay,
support.
so we need support or not?
Support.
Okay, so Jerry's support. Okay, now we'll go down the line. I saw Shay, then Jackie, then Jerry.
I was going to make the motion with
Oh.
the omission of D from goal 2. I think we all agree, most of us agree that it's a make-work project. That was me.
Okay, so now I need help.
I can accept that as a friendly amendment.
Okay, great, perfect, thank you. Okay, now we're Jackie.
Well, I think Jerry has to.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, support.
Okay, now Jackie, thank you.
Okay. I would be in Mr. McGillivrary's camp on this. I think fewer goals are better. I think that fewer, more specific goals are better. I think that this is a wish list, and because it is so long and so broad that we cannot hold ourselves accountable for accomplishing anything on it. I think a short list of 3 to 5 goals that have timelines and specific results, deliverables associated with them would be a lot better way to communicate to our community and to ourselves what it is we want to get done in the next year. And I'm afraid as a tool of prioritization, this list is just about unusable.
Jerry?
I mean, I was just gonna say that the quicker we can approve the goals, the quicker we can start working on things. If it goes into the next meeting, this is kind of like last year, and then we're just doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
So, but back to what we said last, I think if we get the riparian ordinance done, then that's been talked about forever, and if we can get that to the finish line, that's for a 15-meter, we only meet 15 times a year. We're all volunteers for the most part. So, I mean, so that's why I'm supporting it, just so we can so next meeting we can start to work on stuff. Or again, tonight we had 3 items that weren't even anywhere on this goal sheet, or 2 items, I guess.
Jackie?
It seems to me that a 2-week delay to actually produce a list of achievable, prioritized goals would be well worth that time.
I'm not interested in that, and there was a motion on the floor. So I think
no,
we have to vote on the
Yeah,
motion.
no, but she can make that argument. and
Yeah.
I understand that. And you know what? I would do it too, but I'm not going to write it. I mean, if someone wants to say they're going to provide us something to consider, then I'll look at it in 2 weeks again. We can always change the goals. But right now, I'm just sort of like, I'm not going to ask staff to do it. It's just, it's not worth the time to do it. Tell you what, next year, I'll apply to the city commission for a grant to rewrite the goals for the planning commission with, in a better format with this, no insulting, but not trying to, just with a better, more fluid to tasks and goals and combine them all. It'll take me I'd say 2 hours, which means really it'll take me 2 days to get everyone, and then we'll talk about it for 2 months, and then we'll probably go back to the original, but I'll get them paid for it anyways, so.
Yeah, well, we do have 2 vacancies that will get filled in time, and those people will have new ideas. But if we're going to delay it any further, then we might as well make creating goals for 2026 one of our goals for 2026.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a January project. It is January.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Yes.
I think I'd like to just say, going forward, maybe we don't do goals and there's the actions in the master plan and we just stick to that. That's our goals, because Leslie pointed it out, a lot of these goals are pulled from there.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just stick to that.
Yeah. We have items,
That's our law, right?
an actionable list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the goals, like Mitch is pointing out, become a goal.
Yeah. Laborious.
So.
Okay. Jackie?
just a reminder, I have a nice tidy set of 3 goals ready to send out to anybody who'd be interested in seeing them, and that you're welcome to accept or reject those. But if you're worried about somebody taking the time to write them, there are some written. You can see what an alternative approach to goal setting would look like. These are goals that are specific and measurable and action-oriented and realistic and time-bound. And all those are kind of the classic ways that you examine a goal for whether it's actually going to get done.
You can still send those to the commission, and we could still approve these goals tonight. Get the report off our desk, get the goals off our desk, get into work, and then at some point, you know, when you've got those done, and if you want to, you know, look at back, we can always revisit our goals. They're not set in stone. This is just to get this report off everyone's desk and move forward. You know, it's not you know, creating a new list of goals isn't one of our high priorities for this. We're going to do what we need to do, and we're going to move forward on it. And that's kind of my feeling. That's why I'm going to support this. It's just, we spend too much time talking about this and going in circles, you know, and it'd been great. I understand that meeting didn't happen until yesterday, you know, so it's, you know, there wasn't a lot of time in between, but, you know, you can always bring it up in February. I won't be here, so, you know, you can see if they'll reconsider it then. But I'd be
Yes.
happy to see what you've got.
Yeah,
You know,
I was-
just send it.
I
out.
have,
I would
I have
be
hard
more than,
copies if you want them, but I don't
yeah,
know
I'd
if
be
that's
more than happy to
acceptable.
see them. I mean, there's nothing wrong with, I don't, obviously we didn't get them in an email, but I'm not.
Right.
We do have a motion on the floor, though.
Yeah. I was gonna let Jerry do that one last circle,
I
because
didn't know
he
there was
did
hard
make eye
copies. I was just saying, I'm happy to have an email, but I'll take a hard copy.
There you go.
Okay,
Everybody's interested.
cool. So we're gonna vote on the motion. All those in favor of Mitch's motion with Shay's friendly amendment? All those in favor? Aye.
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 All those opposed?
No.
Okay. Roll call, please, Katie. Sorry, I jumped through that one.
Commissioner Anderson,
No.
Commissioner Deturi,
Yes.
Commissioner McGillivray,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Brien,
Yes.
Commissioner Treadwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Swanson.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Okay. Are we into reports now? We're into announcements.
Yeah, so just a couple from the department. We're still waiting for the American Planning Association to open their registration that we talked about the last meeting, and they say they're going to do it in January, so we're about 2/3 of the way through. I imagine it'll be anytime soon now. For your February 3rd regular meeting, we received a site plan review application for a car wash
Lucky you, Brian.
at the location of Cup of Joe and Burger King. That is a use by right in the C3. It's gone through design team just this week, so it will be on your agenda for February 3rd. We also received a rezoning application for John Collins. If you remember, he owns the 3 properties attached with Third Coast Bakery. He had previously got a conditional rezoning, which has those time limits on it. That was brought to the Planning Commission last year. Ultimately, no action was taken on an amendment to that, so he's submitted an application just to straight rezone it, so he can continue working on his project, recognizing that his expiration is in April, and rezonings typically take 2 to 3 months, so he's hoping to get a determination on that before it expires, so he knows what direction to go. Also at that meeting, you will receive the Capital Improvements Plan, or CIP, just for introduction. So following the format of all the previous years, it'll be introduced just for introduction. What we typically do is then ask in that next week to submit any questions that you have, so we can seek out the department heads or departments to provide the answers. We compile all the Planning Commission questions and department head answers that we've received, and we'll bring that back in the study session for discussion. If we find that those answers were not sufficient, then for the next meeting, which is the first week in March, when we have the public hearing for the CIP, we will ask that specific department head to come and be before the planning commission. What we're trying to do is kind of respect their time and not make them come to multiple meetings just to be there in case. So try to be a little more intentional with that. For that February study session, in addition to discussing the CIP, I've talked with Maxwell, and I believe I emailed you about that, but the Grand Traverse County EDC, in conjunction with, or partnership with Flywheel and Housing North, has been working on the zoning atlas, which rolled into the corridor opportunities presentation that some of us attended last week at the Traverse City Curling Club. So Maxwell has agreed that he would provide an overview, tentatively scheduled for that CIP for those that weren't able to make it, as well as a tutorial on how to use the zoning atlas. If you haven't done it, it's a national effort. That's kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Making all, every community has a different zoning ordinance, right? So they're kind of stabilizing it all so you can look at it at a national level of what is allowed where. It really, what we're most interested in Grand Traverse County, and it looks at where there's already infrastructure in place where the zoning allows it, so it makes it a little more targeted based on where housing specifically can go. And I think that's it from our department. Did either of you have anything?
So full February meetings. Okay. Hearing no other announcements, I guess. We'll move to general public comment. Seeing no general public comment, I'll close that, and I think our meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Debbie is also missing both February meetings, so.